Oral questions by members.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Because of the Cowichan court ruling, I think we've seen something unprecedented in British Columbia, which is a new class action lawsuit is actually being brought forward against the province and the federal governments by property owners to, and I quote, because the governments, I quote, failed to properly defend the rights of property owners. Furthermore, it alleges that governments misled property owners by claiming their land was safe, marketable, and free from material qualifications, when these governments knew that wasn't true. So a simple question through to the Premier. Does every private property owner in the province have to go forward and join this class action suit to get this government to finally protect private property rights in British Columbia?
Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to start by being perfectly clear to those that are listening at home. Land titles across British Columbia and Richmond are valid. It is simply inaccurate to suggest otherwise. People own their properties regardless of where it is located in the province. I've talked many times in this debate over the province's strong stand in protecting the private property rights of those individuals during this Cowichan claim. We've canvassed many times the steps that we've taken as a government to stand up for the uncertainty that was created by the decision that we strongly disagree with, and will continue to do so, Mr. Speaker. In contrast, what we've had from the other side is confusion, mix of messaging, sending fundraising emails over this issue to try to earn money for their political party.
Members order.
And we've had the opposition leader say mixed things, both to get maybe fundraising emails from their political party and to the news. Mr. Speaker, recently when asked about the hearing and what he was hearing from Indigenous leaders, the opposition leader said they know Section 35 rights exist. They've been fighting all their lives, fighting for 170 years, 160 years for their land to be returned to them. That's what they would like to see, and the question becomes, how do we do that as part of reconciliation? Our approach has always been to talk about what I call economic reconciliation, because yes, lands need to be returned, but we can do it in a way that is achieving a goal that is different than just land. We've got to get to this place where Indigenous people are fully engaged and prosperous, and returning land is going to be part of that, to be able to unlock that potential. Mr. Speaker, what he says between what we hear in this House often with the misinformation and fear-mongering, what he says in the media is all mixed and complicated. We are going to stay focused on the issues that matter to British Columbians, to resolve issues that we know are complicated, and stand with both Indigenous people of this province and the private property owners of Richmond. Thank you.
Member has supplemental.
Sure, Mr. Speaker. And I do find it entertaining that the minister seems to be completely dismissive of the concerns of landowners. So let's read something else from this lawsuit, that it says that the landowners suffered economic and psychological harm, and that the government conduct was unlawful and contrary to their duties of good faith and candor. Look, Mr. Speaker, this is pretty straightforward. The City of Richmond has been very clear in saying that the province did not argue to protect private property rights. The landowners are now saying very clearly that the province did not argue to protect private property rights. And even the judge made the case that the province did not stand up and argue to protect private property rights. So perhaps a simpler question. Why does this Premier think that everybody else is wrong and that he's right?
There we go.
Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What the opposition leader just said is simply not true. I invite him to read the 500 or to read the 800 pages of that decision, where it lays out what the province's arguments were. What we said about upholding our Land Titles Act and defending the property rights of individuals in this province. I invite him to read that, because I think he would come to a different conclusion if he did. What we won't do is send, what we won't do
Members.
And what is,
Members. Order, member. Please
what we
continue.
won't do, and what is dismissive, is to use this as a fundraising tactic for their own political party. To use this as something to spread, to fearmonger across this province. We're going to be focused on the issues to resolve this matter and not.
Members will come to order. Members will be quiet. Attorney General.
And not participate in what the other side is doing, which is just going to create more chaos. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Before the chair takes next question, I want to caution all members not to use electronic devices during the question period. Member for Kamloops Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, supportive housing providers have been begging this government for quite some time now to change the Rental Tenancy Act rules so their units do not apply because they are not able to protect the vast majority of their tenants from violent tenants and drug dealing tenants. In the summertime, the former minister committed to look at this and bring forward changes by October. It is now almost December. Question to the new Minister of Housing: is the government still committed to be removing supportive housing units from the Rental Tenancy Act, and if so, when can they expect those changes?
Minister of Housing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is important work for us as a government because we are working so closely with communities and local governments all across this province to continue to build badly needed supportive housing that improves safety for individuals and communities. We set up a working group with supportive housing providers. We continue to be in conversation and are working through details of how we address safety concerns in these buildings for tenants and staff while continuing to support and protect tenant rights and to continue to expand supportive housing in every community where it's needed for the safety of all. Mr. Speaker, members across the aisle have been spreading misinformation about supportive housing, have been unsupportive of this badly needed housing in communities. That is greatly concerning because we know that the greater safety risks are when people are left.
Members. Order, members. Order.
The greater
Please
risk
conclude.
to communities is when people are left to fend for themselves in encampments or on the street. We will continue to work with providers, with communities, with local governments on tangible solutions.
Thank you. Member supplemental.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And that answer right there very clearly demonstrates how this government tries to tell stakeholders and other providers that they're doing one thing and their actions are the complete opposite. I wouldn't want to be accused of spreading misinformation, so I'm going to read directly from Appendix E, the minimum requirements checklist for the negotiated request for proposals of supported housing operated services in Kamloops, BC. An addendum that is now part of BC housing packages for supportive housing, Mr. Speaker, and it says, please note, only organizations who agree to the following requirements for supportive housing operations will be considered for this site. This has been launched recently by this government. Let's look at a few things you have to agree to. Will residents be allowed to use substances on site at this site? Yes or no? If you say no, you're out. Do you agree to operate this model under the minimal barrier harm reduction model? Yes or no? Has to be a yes or you're out. Now, Mr. Speaker, that creates the environment for drug dealers to move in, and the Rental Tenancy Act is why it needs to be changed. But let's look at another clause. Do you understand that residents of permanent supportive housing are entitled to the tenancy protections outlined for permanent supportive housing in the BC Residential Tenancy Act and regulations, Mr. Speaker? It doesn't sound like a government trying to remove this from supportive housing operators. Why is the minister doing one thing out in the real world and saying something completely different in this House?
Thank you, members. Shh. Minister of Housing.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. I will reiterate that we're working closely with supportive housing providers to understand the challenges that are being faced. We know that, that there are housing providers that are facing greater challenge due to a higher level of mental health needs, brain injury and more, and we're working alongside those providers to
Members,
ensure...
members, let the minister answer, please. Be quiet. Please continue.
We're working alongside providers to ensure success in this housing for the residents and tenants in these houses, as well as staff and communities. We want to make sure that our vulnerable neighbours have a safe place to come to call home to rest their head.
Members, let's be courteous to each other. Please conclude.
We want to make sure that our most vulnerable neighbours have a safe place to call home and to connect with health services, addiction supports, mental health supports and more that will help them get back on their feet and recover. We know that that is what makes a difference for individuals and communities, and we'll continue that work.
House Leader of the Third Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unlike the Leader of the Opposition, when I seek to get answers from the other side of the House, I don't seek to create chaos based on unread decisions. I read the Cowichan decision. So my question is focused on getting answers to questions that are important, that don't foster chaos, but foster a sense of collaboration and solutions. On December 6th, the Mayor of Sydney has been invited to spend the night in the winter cold alongside advocates from St. Andrew's Anglican Church, Greater Victoria Acting Together and Homes for Living. Earlier this year, the Sydney Council voted against installing an extreme weather shelter in the community. Part of the problem is the province's ad hoc approach to shelter, which often forces municipalities to reopen what is a difficult debate on shelter locations every year. In Sydney, we need rapid response in addition to systemic change. My question is to the Minister of Housing. Are you ready to provide rapid wraparound housing and support to the unhoused community in Sydney if the Mayor and Council reverse their decision?
Minister of Housing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the member opposite both for the question and his advocacy on this.
Shh. Members, please continue.
Thanks. I want to thank the member opposite for his advocacy on this front and for vulnerable and homeless populations. Absolutely. We are ready to work with local governments who want to work with us on solutions, particularly where there are good solutions on the table. There are local governments all over this province who have been excellent partners in making land or spaces available, in reaching out to the province proactively to find good solutions. I'm incredibly grateful for the level of leadership that we see from communities all over this province in working alongside us, and we stand ready to continue to do that work wherever we can.
Member supplemental.
Mr. Speaker, there's a phrase sometimes used among social advocates: displacement equals death. Tragically, last week, Cowichan exemplified the phrase. On November 17th, residents of an encampment were violently evicted. The next day, Cowichan saw a terrifying spike in drug poisonings. This isn't a coincidence. When communities are ruptured and people are separated from supports, people die. Similar sweeps at the Abbotsford Highway rest stop and communities across BC amount to violence and exacerbate social disorder. Perhaps city police departments wouldn't have ballooning budgets if residents had access to dignified housing. My question to the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs: it is clear that displacement solves nothing and causes great harm. As winter sets in, what other tools will this government use to take care of its citizens?
Minister.
Thank you very much, and thanks again to the member opposite for that question. We know that encampments are not a safe long-term option for residents. That's why we're working so strongly on providing other options. In North Cowichan and Duncan, BC Housing is currently funding 52 shelter spaces for people experiencing homelessness. An additional temporary winter shelter with 24 beds is set to open any day now. As well, the province and Duncan are partnering together on homeless and encampment response temporary housing solutions with a 34-unit tiny home village that welcomes people who are transitioning out of homelessness. We know that these are the answers that provide good long-term supports, and we'll continue to do that work.
Leader of the Fourth Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Record deficits, record debt, stagnant wages, rising costs, and productive people are fleeing our province. The BC Business Council reports that since 2019, public administration has grown a massive 44% in this province. This is a staggering number, and what have we gotten for it? Healthcare has gotten worse, schools are more crowded, streets are terribly unsafe. The Premier has maxed out the credit card on ideological wars on climate, race, and gender. Mr. Speaker, my question to the Premier is this: when will he put an end to this grotesque government waste, fraud, and abuse, and let the public service actually fix what's broken?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Thank you to the member for the question. When this government came in 2017, there was an incredible deficit of services that people in British Columbia needed: hospitals, schools, additional safety. And we have been building that infrastructure, Honourable Speaker. At the same time, it is true that economic conditions have been very challenging. The pandemic, what happened in terms of supply chain, interest rates, and now a trade war. We have faced serious economic challenges globally. It's not unique to BC, it's not unique to Canada. And in this context, we must be absolutely certain that every dollar we spend is supporting British Columbians to the maximum possible. And that is why we are doing the work to ensure that every ministry is evaluating their programs. Our efficiency review is fully underway, Honourable Speaker. We've put in a hiring freeze. We've already seen 1,000 less public servants. At the same time, Honourable Speaker, we must protect the services that British Columbians rely on, and will do that.
Supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the Premier in charge, the only thing growing is government debt. The Fraser Institute reported yesterday that our debt will increase by more than $80 billion over the next 4 years, a jump from $115 billion in 2024 to $208 billion by 2028. That's just 4 years. Socialism is great until you run out of other people's money. Well, we've run out, Mr. Speaker, and the productive, hardworking people of this province are running out of BC. Last year, 70,000 people left British Columbia, another sad record set by this government. Mr. Speaker, my question for the Premier is this: how many people need to flee British Columbia before he reverses course and makes the necessary deep cuts to taxes and government waste? Thank you.
Minister of Jobs and Economic Growth.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I want to thank the member for the question. I think I should clarify a few things, Honourable Speaker. We've added nearly 200,000 private sector jobs in British Columbia since 2017. Over 27,000 private sector jobs just last year, Honourable Speaker. We're one of the leaders in the entire country. And so when the member gets up and spews misinformation, which is a daily occurrence, I think it's important for us to correct. Now, the member also gets up in the House and says people are fleeing, and then the next day says there's too many people. Let's get rid of all the immigrants. There's too many immigrants. this member needs to clarify, I think, what their position is. Do they want more people? Do we want to be able to attract the best talent in the world, to be able to support innovation, to support our companies, to support our economy and our communities? Or do they not want those people? Because it's not entirely clear to me, given their changing position day to day.
Member for Kelowna Mission.
Mr. Speaker, with so many student leaders on the precinct today, I'm reminded of my own time in student government at UBC. The 1990s NDP froze tuition for politics, but their failure to fund the freeze brought the system to its knees and led to sharp hikes when the freeze came off. Student leaders, myself included, pushed for the 2005 tuition limit policy, which capped domestic tuition increases at 2% and gave students 20 years of predictability across multiple governments. When will the Premier release Don Wright's buried public post-secondary funding formula review, and will he give students certainty today and commit to maintain the 2% cap on domestic tuition increases?
Minister of Post-Secondary Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. We know that right now our public post-secondary sector is struggling. We're seeing significant revenue losses, and they're still coming off the impacts of COVID and what they had to deal with then. We're seeing declining domestic enrollment. We're seeing global inflation that is not affecting just BC, but our country and across the world right now. And this has been significantly exacerbated by the federal government's unilateral cuts to international student visas. And by cutting these student visas by 70%, without speaking to provinces about what their needs are, and without allowing institutions to prepare for these effects, it's having significant impacts where almost all of our public post-secondary institutions are facing significant pressures and declining revenues. This is why our government has instituted a holistic review of the public post-secondary sector that we announced yesterday to ensure that every dollar that is in the sector is going to ensure accessible and affordable post-secondary education for students, whether you live in the Lower Mainland, on the island, in interior, wherever you are in the province, you need to have access to education, and that is what this review will do. This is going to ensure that we are dealing with the circumstances that are today. What happened 2 years ago or 3 years ago is not where we are today. We do not see that 70% cuts.
Please conclude.
It's different situations. At the end of the day, this review is necessary in order to know how we move forward, holistically look at the sector and ensure the long-term sustainability of the sector in a way that will keep education in BC at the top quality education while ensuring that our public post-secondary institutions have the support they need and that students are getting affordable education.
Member for Peace River South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, I spoke of how several prominent members of Tumbler Ridge nearly died while the ER was closed. The minister attributes the ER closure to recruitment efforts, while Northern Health told residents ER closures were good for them. The mayor is in this House today. Will the minister stand up and guarantee that his residents won't have to go through the same thing under this NDP's crumbling healthcare system?
Minister of Health.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker. Thank you to the member for the question. I'm really glad that the Mayor of Tumbler Ridge is here in the House today, and I welcome him. I look forward to meeting with him tomorrow for the ongoing discussions about what's taking place in Tumbler Ridge. It is really difficult for residents. This change has been very unsettling. People have very deep opinions, but the positive side of this is that people are coming to the table, and I know that Northern Health continues to work with the MLA, with the mayor, with the community to do everything possible to help address the workforce challenges that Tumbler Ridge and too many communities across BC are facing. Mr. Speaker, that's why we have to continue our efforts to attract more physicians and nurses into British Columbia. That's why we've reached out into the U.S. to ask physicians and nurses and allied health professionals to come practice here in our public universal healthcare system where they are welcomed. And Mr. Speaker, they are coming. We also have to plan for the future. And that means expanding the UBC Medical School, which we've done. It means building a new medical school at SFU, which we are doing and which the Leader of the Opposition turned down to do at a time when we might not be in quite the same situation that we are today. Mr. Speaker, my commitment to the Mayor of Tumbler Ridge and to the communities across this province that are facing these shortages is to continue to do everything that we can to build the workforce that we need to deliver health care for British Columbians when they need it and where they need it.
Member for Kamloops North Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the Forest Minister stood in this House and claimed that his government is building a strong, prosperous forest sector. When, Mr. Speaker? When? The people of 100 Mile heard those similar words the very same day their major employer, West Fraser, shut its doors, wiping out 500 jobs. Families, contractors, and whole communities are now wondering how they're supposed to survive. So, Mr. Speaker, regardless of the never-ending reviews and task force, when will this Forest Minister take some responsibility and not just keep blaming the Americans and everyone else and admit that it's his government's policies that have put more and more people out of work?
Minister of Forests.
Thanks very much, Mr. Speaker. Firstly, I want to take the opportunity to speak directly to the people of 100 Mile. This is devastating news to lose that sawmill when West Fraser made the announcement about that closure. Devastating news for those workers, over 165 unionized workers, but also for that town, a major employer, the direct and indirect impact. I've been in conversation with the mayor of 100 Mile. I've spoken to Brian O'Rourke, the union president, and we've said to them very clearly, as is the premier, that we're going to be there with them during this very challenging time. Now, Mr. Speaker, the members opposite really do have a trouble right now with understanding what's going on in forestry. We have
Members. Please complete.
Members opposite haven't realized we're in a trade war right now, and we have 45%.
Members, Minister has the floor.
Now, Mr. Speaker, we have 45% duties and tariffs on our softwood lumber. There are more duties and tariffs on British Columbian lumber heading down south than Russian lumber. Now, there's a lot of spunk from the opposition today. A lot of spunk in their...
Members.
There's a lot of spunk from the opposition today. I'm not sure where that's coming from. Maybe they had a really good caucus meeting last night or today. But I wish they used that same energy, that same spunk, to join us on this side of the House in fighting for our forestry workers. And Mr. Speaker, the Premier of our province led the fight to Ottawa and delivered literally billions of dollars in funding to help protect forestry workers. On this side of the House, on this side of the House,
Members.
On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, our message is clear. We're going to fight like hell for forestry workers. That's our record. We are pleased that Ottawa is joining us in that effort, and we're going to continue that effort in the days, weeks, and months ahead.
Member for Cariboo-Chilcotin.
Mr. Speaker, that's devastating to hear that answer. Last week, the West Fraser Mill in 100 Mile closed. We lost hundreds of jobs. That'll have ripple effects through the entire region. This morning, Drax announced a permanent closure of its pellet plant in Williams Lake. Devastating blows to our region. Both companies pointing to the same crisis. No fiber, no byproduct, nothing to run on, because this government's policies and curtailments in other operations have choked the entire supply chain. Mr. Speaker, we've raised solutions here. We've brought them to this House. We've told them with the minister, shared those with the minister, and still nothing. Mr. Speaker, this is a full-blown crisis. Full stop.
Question, member.
Hundreds of people, Mr. Speaker, in Caribou-Chilcotin are going to be out of work by Christmas. When will this government stop the rhetoric that we just heard and treat this like the emergency it really is?
Members, sounds like a music festival. Let's shh. Members. Question was asked. A serious question was asked. Let's hear the question answer from the minister. Minister Forrest.
Thanks very much, Mr. Speaker. The member opposite is going through a really challenging time with significant news coming out of 100 Mile and also. Mr. Speaker, we're talking about people's livelihoods. The members opposite can heckle all they want. I would appreciate the opportunity to talk about the work that we're doing and also provide my sympathy to the people of 100 Mile and Williams Lake. Really disappointing that they would take this tone, but not surprising.
Members, please. Members, enough.
Mr. Speaker, I want to quote from West Fraser's media release made on November 6, 2025, and I quote, "The 100 Mile House lumber mill is no longer able to reliably access an adequate volume of economically viable timber. Challenging softwood lumber demand, higher duties, and additional tariffs have compounded the situation," unquote. Duties and tariffs. The member opposite says read the first line. The member opposite maybe hasn't been up to the Caribou in a while, but devastating wildfires has impacted the land base there. West Fraser, in the year 2025, submitted 7 permits for harvesting. All 7 were approved. In my conversations with West Fraser, it was very clear. Duties and tariffs compounded the situation that led to the closure of that facility. In the case of Drax and the facility in Williams Lake, I encourage the members opposite to go and read the release. They were unsuccessful in securing a contract that another proponent, Atlantic Power, received. That made a huge factor in their decision to curtail and close their operations. My Deputy Minister will be speaking to Drax shortly this afternoon. I look forward to the conversation as well. We on this side of the House recognize the challenge that we're facing in forestry, but we also recognize the opportunity to ensure that no worker in British Columbia and Canada is ever put in this position ever again. It's why the Premier has been leading the national fight for forestry. And that fight has been successful in literally securing $1 billion just from the Prime Minister today in supports for our forestry workers. We have more work to do to transform this sector to ensure that no worker, Mr. Speaker, is ever put in this position ever again.
The bell ends the question period.